Good morning. I'm Nicole, and this is Amy Manya. She is a social worker, and she's a certified equine gestalt coach. And right now, you are a private therapist?
Yeah, so I operate as a therapist. I do some traditional office therapy, but a lot of my work is in an arena with a client, so helping human beings in partnership with horses. So most of my office work is in an arena, which is now my office.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest question I have for you is how do you recognize changes or any sort of mental health crisis, or how do you, are there things to watch for or notice when you think someone is struggling a little bit, or how do you go about that?
So mental health is something that can be maybe more easily talked about if it's a separate thing, but when it's impacting our lives directly or people we care about, it can be a lot more difficult to navigate. So there's a few different kind of ways I think about this, and the biggest thing for me now is about relationships. So we are actually relational beings as much as we're predators, and we have that drive to be independent and self-sufficient. We also need people in our lives. So one of the biggest things that we might notice in ourselves is withdrawing when we're starting to pull back from some of those relationships.
Right.
But it's really interesting because one of the symptoms of mental illness is a lack of insight. So we might be doing these things and we might not even know. We might be just thinking, oh, I just need to take care of myself more. I just need more rest. I'm tired. I'm not feeling good. So that's when it's actually really important to rely on the people we care about to give us that feedback. And for vice versa, if there's someone we care about or we love and we notice that they're pulling away, being it might seem kind of strange, but actually moving in closer or checking in more. And
so how do you tell the difference between someone just kind of needing some more space or self-care and maybe there's something a little bit more going on?
That's a difficult thing to know, and there's no right answer for that.
Right.
Aside from asking them and checking in with them. And even if you check in with them today and then you still have these kind of spidey senses, like something doesn't seem right, checking in with them again tomorrow and stuff like that.
Right.
Or if they start not showing up for class and you totally don't see them and they're not returning your calls or whatever, and your friends or your other peers haven't heard from them, showing up at the door to knock and say what's going on.
Right. Well, and I guess if you do kind of, even if someone is disengaging with you, if you just open that door for communication, then it gives them an option as well, just so that they know, or can feel comforted that someone is checking in on them if they are really struggling and decide that they need a little bit more support.
And the thing with mental health, like any other kind of health, you can't do for someone else. So even if someone is struggling with a mental illness or kind of going down that path, we can't get treatment for them or make sure that they get somewhere. We can just be honest and share our concerns from a place of kindness and compassion. So what I find is most valuable, or the most kind way to talk to somebody, is to just say, hey, I've been noticing these things and I'm really worried about you. Can we talk about it? What's going on? And then if you're really concerned about somebody, just asking them the really hard questions, you just seem like you're really not doing okay. Are you having thoughts of suicide? It can be the hardest question to ask, but it can also be the most relieving question for someone who's struggling but in a shame place and not able to talk about it.
Right. So then I guess, do you have your hard and fast questions that you ask somebody if you think they are in a crisis? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the question I ask. And I really normalize it first. So because thoughts of suicide are pretty common, and most people will have experienced them sometime in their life, but most people won't talk about them. So really normalizing it first and saying sometimes when things get overwhelming or we have a lot of stress and all this stuff is happening to us, it can seem like it can get really hard. And sometimes when things get hard, people can experience thoughts of suicide, or sometimes I even separate it more. Thoughts of suicide will cross through a person's mind to even separate it a little bit more as something that happens to a person. Because I don't think we choose to have thoughts of suicide, or no one would choose to have a mental illness, but it kind of happens to us when we're in, stress places or we've experienced trauma and stuff like that. So normalize first and then ask the question and then shut up.
And listen.
Seriously, shut up and listen. And there might be like a sidestep, like, oh, well, I was going to ask you about this project or whatever. And so just listen and then be like, go back to that question and ask again and be quiet again, which is really hard.
I guess for me, and I'm sure lots of fellow students can agree, that Palmer is a very stressful place, and there are a lot of situations where you could find yourself struggling. So when you are in a high stress situation like that, especially when it's over the course of a few years, do you have any tips or anything to kind of stay on top of things?
So, when you're at a high level of stress for an extended period of time, it can definitely have its toll. We know this from a mental health perspective and a physical health perspective. And going to school, I've never been to Palmer, but what I can imagine it being like, striving for perfection or pretty close to it, and needing to get those grades and putting it all into that basket of, this is what I chose, this is what I'm meant to be, I'm gonna do this, and there's no other option but to do this and to do it well and to be the best chiropractor that ever was. You're probably not gonna be the best chiropractor that ever was, and that's okay. Sometimes we have to, when we're in situations that really challenge our beliefs about ourselves and who we are and what we're capable of, we need to change our expectations, instead of just beating ourselves up if we, fail a test or aren't doing well. But changing those expectations, and sometimes good enough is good enough. Actually, most of the time, good enough is good enough. And the other part is self-care. And I don't like that word because those words because they're so I don't know, they can seem kind of like frou-frou. Take a bath, self-care, bleh. Taking a bath is good if it helps you to feel good about yourself, or it gives you that quiet space in your life. But really, for me, it's about backing it up. And if you're going to carry all this stuff, what do you need to be able to do that? So we talk about mental health, and you guys study the nervous system, and that's what you specialize in. We know our brains are not connected from our bodies. So why do we talk about mental health as if it's something separate? So we got mental health, physical health, spiritual health. You could separate emotional health. You could separate all that kind of stuff, but it's all connected. So if you don't have time to do things like meditation, which is brilliant for some people, getting your body into that really relaxed state, the more we practice that, the easier it gets to get there. The easier it is to get there when we want to. And then we also seem to run at a lower level of stress. Our baseline kind of goes down, or we need a higher threshold of stress to get into that panic stress response. Right. But if you don't have time to meditate every day, work out every day, go to church or whatever your spiritual practice is every day, do all the things every day, if you can do one thing and understand that they're all connected, something that can take care of yourself or fill your bucket up so you can keep expelling all this energy, using all this energy to try to learn and be the best that you can be. The other thing that we talked about a little bit before we turned the camera on was the kind of highs and lows. Like when we're doing anything that's super close to our heart, it's hard to like separate and not be fully involved in those highs and lows. And it's good to experience the highs, and it can be hard for people to stay there.
Well, I find for me, because I'm aware that I'm gonna have days where I love it and I'm super passionate and I'm working really hard, and I'm gonna have days where it's not the same, like it's just not that. And I've gotten okay with that, but I guess my question is, how do you kind of balance that a little bit more? Or knowing that it's gonna happen, how do you use those days to your advantage? Like the days where you are really really motivated, or however you want to look at it, to kind of balance the days where you're really questioning what you're doing.
So there can be this natural response to try to like limit the highs and lows, which some people in the field of mental health will talk about. Like, you don't want to have the extremes so much, but I'm like, I have a different belief.
Okay.
Like, if you're gonna feel joy or accomplishment, like, feel it all, feel it 1,000%. But how do you stay there for longer, or really experience it in those moments?
Yeah.
So that's things like gratitude, letting go of, thinking about the next hard thing, just and celebrating, like maybe getting together with some peers and celebrating, a fantastic group project, or even just like completing a group project. That can be a celebration, whether it's on time or you get it in late. Sometimes like just like celebrating the little things. So doing gratitude, really figuring out what joy actually feels like in your body.
Right.
Because if you know what it feels like in your body, things like that, then when you remember it, you can think about, okay, what does that feel like? Where did I feel that? How did I get there? What are some things that I can fast track to get there?
Right.
So like for me, it's getting on the treadmill in the morning for 20 minutes. It's not a super workout, but it gets me closer. It starts my day off on the right foot.
Right.
And then this idea of life is about the highs and lows. It's not about just this boring middle ground, which if we were there the whole time, how fun would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, can you really know what joy is if you don't know what pain is, or sorrow, or defeat? It can actually give us a lot of perspective. But I think it's, instead of avoiding the pitfalls, I mean, you can put things in place like daily practices of meditation or journaling, or seeing a therapist, so that you can, professional, so that you can like unload some of that stuff you don't want to unload on your friends, or get some support to navigate it. But instead of avoiding the falls, like, how am I going to get back up faster?
Right.
So, and if tears need to fall, if you need to have a day of like pouting or whatever, like, give yourself that time and space. Then how am I going to pick myself up and do on to the next thing?
Right. You totally just blew my mind, by the way.
Oh.
Because
Thanks.
I tried to not have those such highs and such lows, and try to like ride out my highs a little bit more, so that when I was in the low, I didn't feel as low. But also to not be up here, but to be just more here, so that I could stay more level, instead of having your complete highs and lows. But it's okay to be in those highs and really feel it.
And it is. I mean, there are times when it becomes like a clinical issue if we're making decisions in those highs that like put our life at risk, and like we blow all our finances because we're feeling so good, and we're like, but that's when it becomes more of a clinical thing. But when we're like a functioning human being, and life is like, we're able to handle our life and keep it all together, experience those highs and those lows, knowing that one of my mentors talks about how our life experiences are what actually season us throughout life. So the good and the bad, and the up and the down. and horses, I mean, that's what Gestalt is, and that's what horses do. They don't say like, oh, this is a bad feeling, I won't go there, I won't feel it. They're just like, here's the energy, I'm gonna move through it until it's gone, and then I'll be back, trusting that I'll be back grazing with my friends, and everything will be okay again.
Right.
Like, they just move through the energy instead of saying like, this energy is bad, therefore I shall not do it. I don't want to look like an idiot. Like, they don't say that.
Yeah.
Or they don't say things like, oh, remember 2 days ago when I was so low I couldn't get out of bed, and like, here I am, I showered, and I'm back at, you know, school, and I'm functioning, what was wrong with me? They don't say that. They just do.
So I guess just being more, just kind of being aware of what you're feeling, but to feel it and to be present in that feeling, and try to recognize maybe why you're there, even with the highs, like if you work really hard and you do accomplish something, or with the lows, just recognizing that maybe it is just a really stressful time, or you've got 6 exams this week, or class projects, or whatever it is, but to just be more mindful.
And the more we learn about ourselves, like, we're all unique individual human beings, we all have different triggers, which is like another big word. Like, things that get us in the good and get us in the bad. So becoming more aware of that and giving ourselves what we need to be able to live the life that we want, and also live the life that's right in front of us.
Right.
Like, sometimes I'm sure in Palmer you need to hold on to like, when I have that practice and I have an admin person and it's going to be so glorious and I'm going to make so much money and I'm going to help so many people. Sometimes you need to hold on to that to get through the tough times, and then sometimes you just got to live this life right in front of you, one day at a time, you know, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, whatever it is, to get through that.
Yeah.
There was something else I wanted to say. Oh, as human beings, I mean, we have wonderful brains that can do all this thinking and stuff. But we were also given things like emotions and a body and like this
feelings,
this desire.
Feelings.
Yeah, and I'm like, I do feelings. I don't like other things. I don't do so much, like blood and guts and stuff. I don't do that. Well, it's not good for me, but feelings I do. So I know I'm kind of I'm really biased and like.
That's okay.
I'm all about move into your feelings, but I mean, we have them for a reason, and they're there to give us information, whether the information is like, this is not okay, it's not okay that I'm being treated like this, it's not okay that I'm pushing this hard, I'm not taking any time for myself, or like, my body's trying to tell me that I can't keep doing it this way, I need to take a break, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're just giving us information, and we can choose to listen, or we can choose to be like, oh no, feelings are bad, I shall not feel. And then they can get bigger, and then they can actually start to affect our health if we don't start listen to the whispers. Then our feelings will start to yell, or through our mental health, or through our physical health. So
yeah, just trying to be a little bit more aware, a little bit more proactive, and just recognize that this is a really tough time for us, but we will get through it.
And just like
one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and this sounds like so like, again, frou-frou, but if you had a kid, like a toddler who was having a really rough time and like they were sleep deprived and blah, 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 and they were like melting down, would you tell them they're a terrible person, they shouldn't be feeling that way, whatever? No, like most of us would have that just natural response to pick them up, cuddle them, tell them they're a wonderful human being and we love them so much and it's gonna be okay tomorrow, and just let me cuddle you. And when we can have that response to ourselves, especially when we're feeling shitty, because that's when we need it the most, or find people in our lives who can do that for us, that's when we'll be more okay, and what will actually get us through, and know that we're a worthwhile human being with lots to offer, whether we're having a shitty day or a great day. So
yeah, that sounds really great. Well, thank you for giving us a little bit of a crash course on how to survive this and how to get through it. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
You're very welcome. I'm so passionate about this. I think you get to see me like moving closer to the camera, but yeah, just take care of yourselves as best as you can, and good enough is good enough is good enough. And when you rock it, celebrate it.
Yeah. Nice. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
All right.